Welcome to the public meeting for the shoulder widening of SD 34 from 13 miles east of Fort Thompson to SD 45. Unfortunately, we weren't able to have this public meeting in person due to weather, but we'll be doing it virtually instead. My name is Christian Orr. I am the road design engineer for this project, and Carrie Cleland is my boss, who is the road design engineering supervisor for this project. The purpose of having this public meeting is to involve the public and to let them know what kind of projects we have going on at the DOT. In this presentation, we'll give some background information on the project. We'll talk about how the project will be built, and then we'll give a proposed schedule and timeline for the project, as well as giving other information regarding environmental and utilities and road traffic control. We also would like to use this public meeting as a chance to gather input and feedback from the community. So feel free to leave comments or give us an email on what you think of the project. As said earlier, this project takes place 13 miles east of Fort Thompson. The beginning of the project, if you look at Google Maps, it is right before Prairie Dog Lane is where the shoulder widening will begin, and it is along SD 34 all the way to SD 45. That's where the project will end. Some background information for this project. Original grading and structures were done in 1949 and 1987. It was resurfaced in 1995 and 2017. So for this project, we won't be doing any resurfacing. We'll just be adding shoulders. Other information we look at while scoping this project and deciding what is necessary for roadway improvements is the traffic. Currently, the average daily traffic for the road is 478, and there's a projected 733 cars in 2042. So we'd like to increase the shoulders to add safety for this project. And looking at the traffic, we could see that it doesn't necessarily need more lanes, but shoulders would be helpful. Also, when looking at things for improvement, we noticed that there was 13 reported crashes from the period 2017 to 2021, and the breakdown of that, there was 10 property damage only, and 3 resulted in injury. There's been 0 fatalities. And another breakdown of those crashes, there was 4 animals that were hit, 8 run off the road, and 1 sideswipe in the opposite direction. So having shoulders would greatly help reduce that run off the road kind of crash. The reported crash rate for this road is also 2.69, while we have a state-weighted crash rate of 1.47. We'd like to get this number as low as possible and have at least one day maybe 0 crashes on these kind of roads. When scoping this kind of project, we look to see what kind of highway deficiencies are on the road, and we notice that it has narrow shoulders as well as a drainage issue. And a way we can combat it is with proposed improvements. So because of the narrow shoulders, we'd like to widen the shoulders and give 6-foot shoulders. Because of poor drainage, we'd like to replace and extend the culverts so that way that water can drain properly. We improve the drainage ditches so that way water doesn't just pool up on the side of the road and it can flow down into the nearby rivers or creeks. This is what the proposed typical section for the roadway would look like. As you can see, it has 6-foot shoulders and 12-foot lanes for the road. Another thing we look at when designing the road is the access management. These are the driveways or field entrances that might be along the roadway. And we like to usually limit the number of accesses to avoid the most dangerous kind of crash, which is people entering a road and they didn't check their blind spots and they end up getting T-boned. So usually we like to talk to the landowners to see if we can line up the accesses so that way you have a regular intersection, or removing accesses as to avoid areas that people are going to have to slow down or check when they're driving along the lane. The Department of Transportation also looks at the right-of-way, which is the area that we own along the side of the roads that we like to keep clear of sorts of things, and it's the part that we also maintain. And for the shoulder widening project, we're looking to purchase an additional 150 feet, and we'll get temporary easements as necessary. We'll be contacting the landowners and discussing right-of-way acquisition for this project. When looking at the right-of-way, we have encroachments. These are things that have been placed into our right-of-way by different landowners or other groups, and we like to contact them, and because encroachments will be removed. These can be signs, landscaping items, uh, parking that you might have in our right of way. Usually we like to limit the encroachments in our right of way for the public's safety. Other things we monitor on the side of the road would be utilities. We keep in contact with different utility companies: Central Electric Cooperative, Mid-Dakota Rural Water Systems, and Mid-State Communications. Uh, we talk about when we are widening the shoulder that we're going to have to move some of their electrical poles or uh, water pipes out of our right-of-way because we're purchasing more right-of-way. So in order to keep them out, we're going to have to uh, move them. And so we've been negotiating easements with landowners and utility companies of where to move the utilities once the shoulder widening begins. If, as a landowner, you know of any private utilities that we don't have any information on that are in the right of way along the roadway that will have to be removed, please contact us so that way we don't have to avoid hitting them or ruining them when we go to our construction. As we design and construct this project, we also have to look out for environmental, social, and economic concerns. Uh, this project is being developed in accordance with all the applicable state and federal environmental regulations. The National Environmental Policy Act of 1968, or NEPA, as amended. Coordination has been initiated with the state and federal resource agencies. Cultural surveys will also be conducted in accordance with Section 106 consultation. This so far has been initiated with the Crow Creek Sioux Tribe, and we'd like to make sure as not to encroach with any construction things that will have a cultural importance to them. The project is also being reviewed to determine any avoidance and minimalization and possible mitigation impact to wetlands. If you are interested in creating a wetland, please contact the DOT environmental staff. When also dealing with environmental, social, and economic concerns, we look out for endangered and threatened species. In the Mitchell region, there are some birds that are on the endangered species list that we have to look out for: the whooping crane, red knot, and piping plover, as well as mammals. We look out for the northern long-eared bat. We do this to avoid hurting their habitats and making sure that they can thrive in South Dakota. Moving on to the traffic control. During construction, there will be traffic control. Traffic will be limited on SD34. Single lane with flaggers will be necessary. Access to different properties will be adjusted and maintained. Pipe replacements for the culverts will be constructed one half at a time as to not close off the roadway entirely. Moving on from the traffic control, we're going to move on to landowner meetings. These will be held in spring 2023, where the DOT will contact landowners that will be impacted along this project to discuss different sorts of things that we can do to make the construction process work for you, whether or not it is purchasing extra right-of-way from you or removing trees or other sorts of fencing or drainage areas. We will be in contact with landowners to discuss this project, each on an individual one-to-one meeting. Moving on from the landowner meetings, we have our tentative project schedule, which could be subject to change. We have the spring 2023, which is the landowner meetings, and after that we will be able to come up with our final design, and then in 2024 we will acquire right-of-way, and then in 2026 will be the actual construction of the project. Here is a list of other projects that will be constructed in the area, as well as dates as to when they are to be constructed. You can visit this website down here to look at other projects that will be constructed in the state of South Dakota. Currently, we have a mill and AC resurfacing in 2026, SD34 from SD50 to the start of 077E that will be constructed alongside of this project. This is just the shoulder widening, so that's why it has its own separate public meeting. But the resurfacing will be another project that will be constructed alongside of this project in 2026. Please email or call us if you have any comments or questions on this public meeting. Right below is a website to where you can review the material that we would have handed out if we were in person. We have the handouts which you can review. We have a map of the project, as well as this presentation here that you can go through without the audio recording. And we have a QR code up there which also links you to the project. Thank you for attending.